Thank you. Declarations of interest.
None received in advance.
Any others to declare?
Apologies, Mr Mayor, there is one. Councillor Hodge has declared a non-pecuniary interest in minute number 117 on page 101 as the Secretary of the Hale Recreation Ground Management Committee.
Thank you. Are there any other declarations? If not, we will... There's announcements. As you'd expect, the run up to Christmas was a pretty busy time, visiting various nursing homes, hospitals, whatever, primary schools, nativity plays. We've become an expert on those across the borough. A slightly quieter period immediately in the new year, but last week I had the pleasure of presenting our congratulations to a lady on her 105th birthday. And learnt that on the 105 you get your second letter from the Queen, which was a nice occasion. We also, in the borough, have our centenarian swimmer. So Godalming members may know of John Harrison, who holds the world freestyle, 25-metre freestyle record for the 95 to 100 age group. This year at 101, he's declared he's not seeking any more world records because he can't find one to actually break, but they aren't there. But he's still active, though not swimming, but he was very hopping up on the podium presenting prizes at the Godalming Swimming Club event 2 weeks ago. So an amazing individual. Also, I'm pleased to announce that our annual needle match against Guildford in the pancake race, we won. And the team under Emma Das needs to be congratulated. Emma was joined by Hannah Ash, Craig Holland and Alex Newell. So they're setting up a good record where several of us on top table, Paul Wenham and myself included, have actually run on behalf of Waverley and have also won, though it's a few years ago since we did that, Paul, wasn't it, Paul? Anyway, that was an interesting result, a good result, and maintains the Waverley's supremacy over Guildford at racing up and down the cobbles of Guildford High Street. My charities are moving forward. The Surrey Hills Trust Fund has now, with your contributions, have now raised nearly £4,000 this year. So very many thanks for all your work in helping them. And Dan's Funds for Burns. Remember, they have their concert on March the 19th at St Catherine's School. Two very promising young opera singers will be singing a selection of light operatic and other popular songs. So please do come along and support that. Please contact Alison. She has all the ticket details. I know there are other various conflicting events on in the borough at the same time, but as many as possible, come along and please support this worthy cause. They did have a fantastic ball just before Christmas at Charterhouse. I know not many of you were able to attend because the tickets disappeared before even I could get hold of many of them. I had to fight hard to hang on to 2 tables because they were all going so fast with the fund's friends. They actually raised £33,000 that night, which is an absolutely amazing achievement. But it shows what you happen when you can get good sponsorship and good corporate takers of tables from the city and the West End. That's probably enough for me for this evening, but it's been an interesting time. So we move on now to questions from members of the public. First thing I have to say, there are 3 questions have been received. And unfortunately, it's not possible to deal with the first question from Mr. Alexander because the topic of the question is being progressed by the police. And our legal advice is that we cannot comment on at this time as it may prejudice any further future proceedings. Therefore, I'm sorry, Mr. Alexander, I will not be asking you to read out your question at this stage, and you may wish to return to it if and when the matters under police consideration are resolved. Mr. Beeman.
My favourite topic. The MPPF is quite clear in requiring all new residential developments to be sustainable, including the provision of adequate transport facilities. Badshot Lee, where significant residential development is proposed, is currently served by an hourly Monday to Saturday daytime service that operates between Aldershot and Farnham, then on to Godalming and Guildford. Under proposals issued by Surrey County Council that are currently open for consultation, The section of route between Aldershot and Badshot Lee will be withdrawn completely, while the number of journeys to be operated between Badshot Lee and Farnham is likely to be reduced from 10 to 6 or 7 journeys per day, with the possibility of no service being provided at all on Saturdays. This reduction in bus service will inevitably affect the sustainability of any further residential development in Badshot Lee, and would Waverley Borough Council confirm that when considering planning applications for any new residential development, its transport sustainability will take account of any known future changes in bus service.
Leader? Oh, okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Beeman, for your question. Planning applications for significant schemes are accompanied by a transport assessment. We rely on the expert advice of officers from Surrey County Council to consider these. They typically cover a range of issues, including impact on the highway network, the availability of public transport, walking and cycling routes. The assessment will also assess the opportunities that development may offer in terms of improvement to transport infrastructure. The planning assessment will also take into account the wider social and economic benefits that new housing can bring, such as meeting unmet local housing need. Where changes to bus services are planned, then that would be a matter for the officers of the County Council to consider in their response as one of many factors affecting the sustainability of a development. This might include the positive impact new development will have on the viability of an existing bus service by increasing demand generated from additional residents. Also, thanks to Waverley's generous grants, Hopper, of course, provides the dial-a-ride system, which is free membership and anybody can take advantage of. So hopefully that would deal with the issue of individuals who needed specific trips. Thank you.
Mr. Orange.
Thank you. I'm speaking on behalf of 8 parish councils who want this question put. Our question relates to our concerns on the viability of the consultation process on planning application 2395 submitted by Dunsfield Park on the 4th of December, which theoretically expired on 5th of February. We refer you to the following. In summer 2014, the Council published a special edition of Making Waves, seeking opinions from the wider community on the specific question of their preferences for the location of housing in the borough, with 4 areas proposed as per the applicant. And this was done in order to assist the Council in the preparation of their spatial strategy. Only some 3% of the population responded, with an inevitable emphasis from those in the borough who feel threatened by the development in their own neighbourhood, of a preference for scenario 4, Dunsfield. We still await the publication of essential reports for meaningful consultations to take place. Firstly, Waverley's proposed spatial strategy, which we understand is due in April. Secondly, the Mott-MacDonald report on their current traffic and transport assessment, which I believe was commissioned a year ago, very nearly. And do we understand rightly that parts 1 and 2 of this report are going to be made available to councillors today? And if so, I hope also to the public. Thirdly, the Surrey infrastructure plans and proposals with current financial implications for recent comprehensive budget cuts. Given that inadequate pre-application consultations on any aspect of this multifaceted application have taken place, orchestrated by Waverley in accordance with their statement of community involvement, between Dunsfield Park and all or any of the statutory consultees, or involving the wider community, and that the Council has acknowledged that it cannot meet the formal deadline for submission of this application to a joint planning committee, our question is, how do you propose to proceed now to ensure that, following receipt of the 3 reports above, meaningful consultations can take place across all aspects of this application, with all levels of consultees, as in your statement of community involvement, and in a negotiated time frame acceptable to all parties, and as you rightly refer, are necessary to avoid Her Majesty's government penalties? Thank you.
Councillor Adams.
Thank you, Mr. Orange. The Council has consulted extensively on the planning application for 1,800 houses and related infrastructure at Dunsfold Park. Any impacts of the development and the means to mitigate them will be assessed in the normal way. This will include assessment by the Council's professional officers of the submitted application and taking advice as necessary from statutory consultees such as the County Council, where necessary additional expert advice. You make reference to 3 reports. Firstly, the emerging spatial strategy in the local plan. The weight to be attached to this will be dependent on the stage it has reached when the application is decided. Secondly, the Mott-MacDonald report, which will be published prior to the decision being made on the application. This report's main purpose is to inform progress on the local plan rather than individual planning applications. The developer has submitted a transport assessment of the scheme, which is currently being considered by the County Council and which will inform the outcome of the planning application. Thirdly, the Surrey Infrastructure Study is a high-level document produced by the County Council of limited relevance to this planning application. Any infrastructure impacts of the proposed new settlement are clearly very important and will be assessed in the normal way, taking into account views of the relevant infrastructure providers. You make reference to lack of pre-application discussions. I'm afraid this is incorrect, as the developer did receive advice from officers prior to the submission of the planning application. And also there was discussion with councillors in that area. I'm confident the Council has at its disposal access to the appropriate advice to ensure that its assessment of the planning application is undertaken in a timely manner, together with a detailed and thorough assessment of the relevant planning considerations. If third parties have yet to submit their comments on the planning application, I would encourage them to do so as soon as possible, so that they can be properly considered by the Council.
Thank you. Thank you for that. We move on, and then please, are there, Mr. Taylor, have there any questions been received from members?
None received, Mr. Mayor.
Questions?
None received.
Right, we move then on to the budget. Before I invite the leader to introduce the budget, let me explain how we will deal with it, particularly for the benefit of new members. You'll notice that under agenda item 8 there are 4 subsections. However, there will be just one debate covering all 4 sections. After the debate is concluded, but only after the debate is concluded, we will visit the recommendations, and then we will take them in block, but section by section. If anyone wishes to introduce an amendment, the time to introduce them will when we are considering the recommendations. If you're intending to introduce an amendment, it would be helpful if you indicate that when you speak during the budget debate. So I hope that's clear. So, Leader, would you like to come up and introduce the budget?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's my pleasure to propose the annual budget for Waverley Borough Council, and I have a seconder.
Pleased to second.
This annual meeting is about the finances of the council and the budgets without which we would be unable to operate to support our residents. When this administration was returned at the election in 2011 and again in 2015, we promised to continue to run a balanced budget and maintain our frontline services. Despite huge cuts in grant from central government, I'm really pleased to report that we have done what we promised. The draft finance settlement for 2016-17 was even more severe than all previous settlements, culminating in an overall reduction of 152% in our revenue support grant by 2019-2020. In other words, from 2019, we will start paying the government negative grant. However, members, you'll be aware that I met the Secretary of State on the first Monday in January and made representations on behalf of this Council. We also responded strongly to the consultation, and I'm pleased to inform members that the final settlement statement last week, the Secretary of State announced changes which will give Waverley a total of £304,000 in transitional relief over the next 2 years. In addition, the Secretary of State has withdrawn the proposed negative grant in 2018-19, which would have cost us as a council £350,000. Despite these positive changes and the greater reduction in revenue support grant in 2016-17 than we expected, the net result means that reluctantly we need to increase council tax by £5 a year for Band D property. Whilst this would not be our first choice, the increase represents under twopence per day extra for our taxpayers. This, members, is excellent value for the 110 services that this council provides after the past 6 years when we have frozen council tax. During 2015, Waverley Council have a number of achievements to be proud of. The Hazelmere Leisure Centre opened in January after £3.9 million investment, and the number of visitors to the centre has continued to increase throughout the year. This saw the completion of the final upgrade of our leisure centres. With Hazelmere fully operational, this has been a huge success, with much increased usage of our facilities. Not only do they improve health and offer better leisure facilities, but they also allow us to reduce the running costs of our leisure centres. Our capital spend has been part of the Council's far-sighted policy of investing to save. Also in January of 2015, Ralston House was completed to provide 25 new self-contained flats and 5 studio flats. In February, the annual Green Space Survey showed an increased satisfaction with the standards of grass cutting, cleanliness of parks, and wildlife value of parks, and also countryside sites. In March, the first new new build council homes completed on land in Warren and Perrier Road and at Badgers Close in Godalming. And also in March, planning permission was given for 2 new show homes on the estate at Oxford Ridge in Godalming, where we are undertaking major development of 99 new homes. In the same month, the Hazelmere Skate Park was refurbished, with design being developed in consultation with the regular users. In April, it was the end of the first year of the new garden waste scheme, and this saw a trebling in the number of people signing up to the scheme, and the amount of green waste we collected doubled. The customer satisfaction survey showed nearly 80% of people responding would definitely recommend the service. The Brightwells Tennis Club in Farnham opened in June 2015 with 5 new courts and a purpose-built tennis clubhouse. And during the summer, the Surrey Youth Games took place, and we provided free training for around 400 young people for 8 weeks. and 180 young people represented Waverley at the Games. Farnham Park and Broadwater Park were recognised as being among the best parks in the UK, being awarded green flags in July 2015. Plans to convert the Memorial Hall in Farnham into a state-of-the-art multi-use community centre were agreed in August. In September, Waverley won 2 golds in the South and South East in Bloom awards for Gostrey Meadow and Phillips Memorial. And we, in September, also introduced the flexible tenancies for all new council house tenants. Happily, in September, we recruited 4 new apprentices to the council, continuing our highly successful programme, which has been running for 5 years. During this time, we have provided training and qualifications for 31 local young people, most of whom are now in secure, permanent employment. In October, the Ageing Well strategy was adopted with a 5-year action plan to support older residents living in the borough. A £124,000 government funding grant was secured towards the end of December, and that is towards the cost of 6 new starter homes for young people in Godalming and Farnham. Throughout the year, 5 children's play areas were refurbished at Holloway Hill, Arons Hill, the Phillips Memorial Park, Broadwater Park and Farnham Park. Residents were involved in voting for their favourite designs. We have made impressive gains in performance in our planning service over 2015, consistently performing above target. Last year, we delivered 71 affordable homes across a number of different sites around the borough, and we granted planning permission to develop 234 affordable homes. Waverley was a finalist for 2 national awards in the Annual Service Awards 2015, Best Health and Wellbeing Initiative for Easy Move, and Best Community and Neighbourhood Initiative. I think we can be proud that in 2015 we prevented 513 people becoming homeless, and we had the lowest number of people living in temporary accommodation compared with local authorities in the South East. Members, in addition, we are seeing exceptional weather. Heavy rain, you may have noticed, high winds, and our officers, staff and contractors are responding to demands brought by the effects of the changing weather, be it rain, wind or snow. We continue to plan for the effects of climate change. As we maintain frontline services, I'm really proud that we have once again protected funding for our vital organisations, which include 5 day centres serving our elderly residents, Hopper, Citizens Advice and many more. In addition, the budget before you proposes to strengthen the work done by our planning and environmental enforcement service teams. I'm sure the finance portfolio holder will say more on these and many other areas of council business. Working with officers, we continue to identify savings through Star Chamber as we look to obtain greater efficiencies and benefit from our Invest to Save projects. In the budget before you, we have identified savings of £900,000. This builds on what we achieved in the last administration. My administration has now saved over £5 million in the last 5 years, including £500,000 in staff costs. These are outstanding results. Turning now to the housing revenue account. During the life of this Conservative administration, council housing has faced a period of major change. Despite this, our housing stock has been much improved, with many homes having new windows, kitchens and bathrooms. This has only been possible under the HRA business plan, but changes imposed by the government will mean we need to seriously review our plan. We will be doing this over the summer. As part of that review, we will need to consider how many much-needed homes we can still build, remembering we still have a government-imposed mortgage of £189 million to pay. However, let me remind you that whilst we've been carefully managing the government's debt of £189 million since 2012, we have successfully cleared a backlog on decent homes work and have delivered 1,570 new bathrooms, 1,720 new kitchens, 1,550 new boilers, and new double glazing for 900 homes, at the same time as improving service to our tenants. We recognise the difficult times ahead for our country and will remain mindful of further cuts in grant announced for coming years. But Waverley's Conservatives have proved that we can manage and will manage for the benefit of our residents now and in the future. It is not just us that recognise this. The Council's independent auditor, Grant Thornton, praised the financial management of the Council in their last audit letter. Mr Mayor, colleagues, in the light of the Government's announcement on the final grant settlement last week, I have two changes to make to the recommendations from the Executive to Council on the budget. The first one is to clarify for Council the position on the council tax increase, which is recommendation 1. And that does give two options, and this should be updated to read: an increase for Waverley's element of council tax for 2016-17 be agreed as £5 for the Band D equivalent charge. You will see that we expected that to come, so gave an either way when we reached our decision at the Executive. The second is a proposed amendment to the savings list referred to in recommendation 2, specifically items shown on page 40 relating to Waverley's subscription to the Local Government Association. We have the LGA on rolling notice to withdraw, and this option had been built into the budget proposals. However, given the LGA's work on the finance settlement and coordinating collective legal action on the land charges litigation, I am proposing that we remain in the LGA for 2016-17. Therefore, my proposed amendment is to add the following words to the end of recommendation 2. And those words are, with the exception of the proposed saving of £10,000 identified from cancelling the LGA subscription, with the impact of this change on the draft budget being met from the government's transitional grant. And I have a seconder for that.
Pleased to second, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. The budget proposals have been put together by Cabinet members and officers over recent months. A great deal of hard work has been put in by colleagues, and I would like to thank them all, particularly Councillor Wyatt Ramsdale, our Executive Director Paul Wenham, Finance Director Graham Clark, and the Operations Director Damien Roberts. It is this work, year after year, which ensures the savings that can be made without loss to frontline services. In conclusion, this is a remarkable budget in these changing times, and one that continues to put Waverley first. Members, I commend this budget to you.
Thank you, Leader. I now invite Councillor Ramsdale to formally introduce item 8, the budget.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Items 8A, 8B and 8C are the reports concerning our budgets for 2016-17, the General Fund Revenue, General Fund Capital and the Housing Revenue Account. 8D is the mathematical calculation of the council tax charges. I should like to thank the joint ONS committees for looking at the detail, and their comments are included. I should also like to thank members of the Executive and the Chairman of the Licensing Committee for their participation in reviews, not least the Star Chambers. Plus, I must thank all the officers involved, particularly the heads of service. This has not been a straightforward budget process. However, we have managed to produce proposals for a balanced budget without cutting services. I must warn you that it will be yet more difficult next year. Finally, I must thank my predecessors who established the Star Chambers and introduced the investor save approach, etc., without which we would not be in this financial position. Item 8A, starting on page 11, covers the general fund revenue budget. The headlines are: 1, a 52% cut in our revenue support grant from the government, with this funding all but wiped out in the following year. However, we have had some increase in new homes bonus and most recently a transitional grant. The leaders just referred to that. 2, a proposal to increase council tax for the first time in 6 years, up to the maximum level allowable by the government. This is unavoidable in the light of the severe grant cuts, in order that we can ensure that we can protect frontline services and continue to respond to residents' needs. Despite the major cut to our grant, we are proposing a budget with some very good news items for Waverley residents. There are no cuts to services from financial constraints. The budget maintains the overall amount of grants allocated to community organisations at the same level for the 4th year running. We have maintained full revenue funding to meet the cost of capital investment plans, and the majority of new homes bonus is to go on investor save schemes. The budget increases the spending on the planning service to manage the significant additional demands. The budget includes an extra £48,000 to maintain Waverley-owned ditches to help with flood resilience and to manage tree risk. The budget includes additional funding to strengthen our environmental enforcement and litter picking on key roads. We are conscious that we have recently implemented a catch-up inflationary increase in car park charges. Yet at the same time, we've increased our spending on maintenance and the improvement of our car parks, with particular focus next year on High Street, Hazelmere. The savings and growth proposals are included in Annex 4. With regard to council tax increases, the government initially announced that councils cannot increase their council tax by 2% or more. However, in the light of the severity of the grant reduction and our track record, the government has now reconsidered and allowed us, as a Shire Borough Council, a £5 increase for each Band D equivalent property. This £5 option is recommended. The medium-term financial strategy is a key document that brings together all of the Council's financial plans and considers the future pressures, risks and opportunities. This document is set out at Annex 1 from page 19. The page I would draw members' attention to is page 27. This sets out the forecast over the next 3 years for the General Fund. It shows that we have a significant budget deficit projected for 2017-18 of £1.3 million, which is mainly due to the further government grant cuts. However, we do now have a transitional grant of £152,000 to offset in 2017-18. We will be starting work immediately on this 27-18 budget challenge, especially as many of the ideas going forward have long lead times. The annexes provide the detail, and the pack, including the detailed budget papers, have been circulated to all members and included on the website. There is a range of recommendations on pages 17 and 18. I would point out recommendation 6, which is to earmark funds for potential land acquisitions. This proposal supports Waverley's treasury management and asset strategies. I should also point out the recommendation 3A on page 17, that the staff pay award of 1% from 1st of April 2016 be approved. And I'll take this opportunity to thank all of the staff of Waverley for their efforts on behalf of the residents of Waverley. Item 8B, starting on page 51, concerning the General Fund Capital Programme, sets out the revenue project and capital scheme proposals for 2016-17. The capital programme proposes a mixture of investment in existing assets and services and utilising the new homes bonus to provide new and improved facilities. Headline items include Budget approval for Broadwater Park improvements in Godalming. Commitment to deliver a scheme to develop the Frensham Common Visitors Centre. Continuing the playground replacement programme. Commitment to explore the potential for the development of a new pavilion at Gostree Meadow in Farnham. Additional capital investment to improve Waverley's car parks, including a major project for the car park in High Street, Hazelmere. And continued provision of £350,000 per annum for much needed disabled facilities grants. Item 8C on page 63 is the HRA business plan and capital budgets. This report covers the 30-year business plan and the revenue and capital budgets for 2016-17 for the housing revenue account. We take a longer-term view with the HRA because of the certainty of the rent income going forward and the need to ensure that we can manage the long-term debt and long-term capital investment. It is particularly important that we have a robust business plan so that we adequately invest in existing homes for our tenants and we are able to provide new homes for future generations. The major issue in 2016-17 and beyond is the government's unexpected announcement a few months ago that it will force social housing providers, like Waverley, to reduce their rents by 1% from 2016-17 for at least 4 years. This approach is completely at odds with the government's previous policy of encouraging inflationary increases in rent each year, which is what we had projected in our 30-year business plan and set spending proposals accordingly. The government's decision has created a £1.3 million shortfall in the 2016-17 budget. But, more importantly, this proposal will take away £170 million of resource from Waverley's business plan projections over the next 25 years. On top of this, from 2017-18, the government will be forcing Waverley to sell off its high-value homes when they become empty and pass the money to government. This will lose us a further £130 million. This money would have been spent on new affordable homes and on improving the existing stock. So it is a devastating blow. The detailed budget sheets for the HRA are included in the annexes, and Annex 5 on page 83 shows the proposed savings and growth in the budget which were discussed at the Star Chamber meeting. This report also sets out the draft capital programme for the HRA, split over the 3 main elements. The core capital programme includes investment in the current houses, including decent homes work. The other 2 programmes cover new homes building and the reconfiguration of existing stock. The estimated spend in 2016-17 is £21 million. In the light of the government's sudden decisions about social housing, as mentioned earlier, Annex 9 on page 93 shows the impact on Waverley's plans to invest money in new and improved affordable housing in the borough. Whilst 2016-17 capital spend can be funded, future years are less certain and fundamental reviews are needed. In summary, the impact of the government's changes on Waverley's HRA business plan is extremely significant. And whilst I can support the 2016-17 budget and capital spending proposals being recommended to Council, we need a fundamental review of all aspects of the business plan and every line of the HRA budget, and this is what is proposed in the report. Item 8D, starting on page 295 in the supplementary pages, is the Council tax setting. This, I guess, is the easy bit, or the mathematical bit. This is the mathematical application of our budget recommendations and the tax decisions by the County Council, the police, and the appropriate town or parish council. I would draw attention to the summary Band D calculation on page 301. Mr Mayor, the recommendations for items 8A to 8C are recommendations 1 to 27 on pages 287 and 289 of the supplementary pages, and recommendation 28 for item 8D is the lengthy recommendation starting on page 296 of the supplementary papers. I commend them all to members. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ramsdale. Right, now that the position is open for debate by members at large across all 4 reports, remember, to one debate. Any speakers? Miralles.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Well, I'd like to talk about the £800,000 earmarked for the proposed visitors' centre and play area at Frensham Common. Why do we need this? Do we really want what I'm told is a much larger building impacting on this bucolic landscape? So far, the Common has been free of creeping urbanisation and is all the lovelier for it. This particular spot is a seasonal place where families come in the summer, bringing picnics, playing in the sand and swimming in the lake. In autumn and winter, the area is returned to its natural tranquility. The animals, lizards, etc., get their peaceful habitat back, and those who don't necessarily have families enjoy walking there in the peace and quiet. Thus it serves all members of our community, which needs to be considered. Yes, the current building and facilities there need improving, but we should be refurbishing, not redeveloping. Looking at, for instance, better accommodation for the rangers and their belongings, improved toilet facilities, open Easter to November, a built-on veranda to afford cover, and information boards describing indigenous plants and animals and the history of the lake. The car park too should be improved. Rather than an on-site cafe, which struggles to survive, there could be one or two really good food vans leasing the pitch in the busier months and at weekends, if worthwhile, during other times. They would be responsible for litter and make a contribution towards the toilet facilities. The maintenance costs of this would be far, far less than those of a big building as is proposed. These kind of measures can provide a good service, keep costs down, and retain the unique charm of the place. I am told a play area is also to be built in order to attract more people to the site so that the new cafe within can stay afloat. Yet more building, more furniture. But let us not forget the Frensham Pond Hotel is a short walk away, also provides teas, coffees and light meals, so they will be in competition with them. £800,000 is a huge amount of money to be spent on something which I know a lot of people are dead set against. At a time like this, when the council is putting up council tax and having to cut back on things across the board, this strikes me as an unnecessary PR exercise. And feeling as I do, when it comes to the recommendation, I am minded to make an amendment at the appropriate point. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Goodrich.
Mr. Mayor, can I start by congratulating the leader and the executive and the Councillor Ramsdale and the officers for being able to, I suppose, pull rabbits out of hats yet again. Because having been on this council for very many years, I'm extremely proud at the way that the savings have been made, that we've managed to cope with the vast cuts in grant, but are still able to provide the frontline services for our residents. The leader has had meetings with the minister. I know it wasn't just the leader of Waverley Borough Council that has ensured changes, but he has added great pressure for our benefit. And I just wish that perhaps he could use the same magic wand in improving matters so far as the housing is concerned, because I think it is totally iniquitous that the rules of engagement should be changed so that we are forced to reduce rents which had not been anticipated, and at the same time to be forced next year to start selling our more valuable properties. And I hope that further pressure will be placed upon the government to try and ensure that this iniquity can be put right, because it's really not fair. But I think that everyone should be congratulated on ensuring that we are able to keep going with our voluntary contributions to the voluntary organisations at the same rate. And although I don't know the detail of Frensham, I suspect that the money we're spending will, in the long term, save, and that our policy of putting things right properly and then having to save expenditure later on repairs and other matters will be part of the consideration. So I would like, Mr. Mayor, to congratulate the leader and the team for ensuring that this budget, yet again, is before us. I think we're between a cliff and a hard place on not being able to increase the council rent, but the council tax, but at least with £900,000 worth of savings, we could have lost a lot of frontline services, which that has been avoided. And my congratulations to all concerned. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Potts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, having held the portfolio myself last year, I was in Councillor Ramsdale's place. So congratulations to him, to the leader and to all the officers for all the hard work that went into the budget. And let us not forget the ongoing cuts from central government and the hard work that has taken place and been done, both front of house and behind the scenes by the leader, our two MPs and the LGA, to secure both the transition funding and that recognition. So that is a better place that it puts us into. We really are in a fortunate place. Not only are we delivering a balanced budget, but we're protecting our real frontline services. 4-day centres, all receiving funding. We're maintaining their funding. Farnham Assist, a really good organisation, again delivering a crucial service for some of our most vulnerable residents. People like Waverley Training Services, who in the last financial year we saw some of them deliver to this council a surplus of over £62,000. In addition, they deliver these amazing apprenticeship schemes. We're seeing horticultural assistance being rolled out to some of our vulnerable tenants through one of their schemes. We're seeing things like the Sandy Hill Job Club, which is helping those get back into work, preparing CVs and with job applications. And despite all the challenges faced, Waverley continues to invest in arts and culture. The creativity and culture in this borough is what makes the place distinctive, supports community cohesion and quality of life, playing such an important role in supporting the health and well-being of our communities. We're seeing two key projects delivered and starting to be delivered this year, both the Memorial Hall, which will offer a multi-purpose community health and well-being centre, and house the new Gostry Centre, and I think, and I'm sure most members will agree, very exciting plans to build the new Frenchman Visitor Education Centre and Cafe. Now, previous councillors spoke about this, and I think we need to be clear. The building itself is not fit for purpose. It needs over £150,000 spending on vital works, and we have to look at, is that value for money? And clearly it's not. The site is a fantastic site. It is a jewel in our crown, as everyone so rightly says. And we've consulted already widely with a number of different bodies, including Natural England, and to get their views on this and whether we should look at progressing something forward. Now, we've asked for a further £800,000 to complete this valuable project. And
recorded vote.